So, are you curious?
Codex. I am your ardent enthusiast, Kyle Olson. Hold fast, fellow sailors, as we've crossed into the stormy seas of post-production. Today, Mandy updates me on the 1,000 little pieces that contribute to a final film. We will discuss VFX, the trailer, the website, the score, opening titles, closing titles, and the weird world of coloring. But before we get into that, we'll talk about her recent return to live performance.
Chapter 15. Who cares about the trees?
Before we talk about sort of where Jess Plus None is right now, I wanted to talk about something you did since last time we talked. You returned to the stage.
Oh God, yes, I did.
Yeah, you actually got to sing.
Yes.
So tell us about obviously tell us about how to go and how it came about and how you feel about it.
It was super easy because I have the best podcast partner, as you know, Mandy Kaplan.
Yes. Right.
Mandy Clavin. So sometimes, anyway, she does this show called Miscast every 3 months or so. And I've done a bunch of them and I love doing them. And I'm always like, no, I'm going to focus on my writing and my directing. That's what I'm doing. And then she's like, hey, do you want to play Bradley Cooper? And I'm like, yes, I do. So she always gets me by telling me what I'm going to do. And then I'm like, I can't miss out on the chance to do a Xanadu duet with you on roller skates.
So what is the show? The show is Miscast.
Okay. The show is,
and the premise is,
the premise is right singer, wrong song. So I would be playing, a 60-year-old man or a 12-year-old black girl or like an orphan or anything that I would never, ever get a chance to do actually on stage. Like, it's not fair for me to go in and do, the mom from Dear Evan Hansen, because that's a role I could potentially do. So, but I could play Evan Hansen. So it's that kind of thing. It's all Broadway musicals and stuff, and half the stuff I never even know, and she introduces me to these songs. But she and I are so weird, and we did a number from A Star Is Born where she was Lady Gaga and I was Bradley Cooper, and I played guitar, and we sang Shallow, and then we did that creepy Let's Almost Kiss and then stare at the cameras, the steamy connection between us is palpable. And then this time I did another song from A Star Is Born, sort of lamenting that my partner was no longer with me. And instead of it being Mandy, obviously it was the beard that I wore as Bradley Cooper. So I came on beardless, and then I played a song on piano and sang while it was video of me having a love affair with the beard. And then ultimately the beard and I frolicking in the waves of the ocean, and the beard drowns. And so it was actually an in memoriam to the beard that was no longer with us. And she pitched this idea to me, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'll do it. It was great.
So when's the last time you had done Miscast?
Oh, gosh, 2 years. Yeah, I think it had been about 2 years ago. And I had never played piano in Miscast before.
Okay.
So that was a first. And I'm not like hey, I'll do, Christmas carols around the I'm not that good. But she gave me a song that I could play, and I figured it out. I practiced it every day for like 2 months, and I loved it. I had a great time. It was really fun. Thank you for asking. I love it every time. It still tickles every funny bone in my body. I'm one of those stupid performers that I'm like, it was so good, wasn't it? Because I love it so much,
Yeah. I'm hoping at some point they'll figure out how to live stream it.
I have video.
I really like. You have video? Oh, okay. I wasn't in Los Angeles at that time, so I really wanted to see a lot of them because I know multiple people who are in it, but I'm hoping the wider world could eventually see it. So
that's a great idea.
That'll happen one day.
I'll talk to her about it.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
She asked me to do the September one, but I was like, I'm hoping that I'll be at the Toronto Film Festival instead.
Why? Do you have a film that you're working on?
Oh, funny you should ask, Kyle. Funny you should ask.
So all right, since from last episode to this episode, as people are listening, it has been a while since we talked because you were in post-production stuff. So now a bunch of post-production things have happened. So what was I guess what happened next, like in terms of getting together, selling the movie, because that's like the other thing. As you wrapped, like you have the picture lock as much as you could at the time. So then it's advertising, it's trailers, it's posters, it's like, is this all happening at the same time, or did you get to like sort of finish one thing and then move on to the next?
So I think anything that you can do, I'm speaking to all indie filmmakers out there, okay? This is really like the do-it-yourself mindset. You will go crazy if you do things one at a time on some level. Because like, for example, so we had an April 1st deadline. We had an April 1st deadline that I was like, oh, listen, I called my agent. I was like, so this baby's going to be done April 1st. And I want to start talking about blah, blah strategy. And he's like, all right, well, let me know when the movie's done. I'm like, why are you being like this? The movie's going to be done April 1st.
Did you hear me? April 1st.
Right. And then you can probably guess what happened. Then we had a May 20th deadline for the Toronto Film Festival. Then we had a July 1st deadline for the ABC directing program. And now I'm going back in tomorrow to finish up color VFX. So what I'm saying is if I had waited until everything was absolutely done to do the trailer, the poster, etc., I would have been way behind. But as it is, because we're the pieces are coming in, they're just coming in slowly. So we're finishing up VFX. Note to every screenwriter, just know, unless you have a buddy that does VFX, don't write a bunch of animals in your movie, which is what I did. So, and even though the guy Yoshi did an amazing job, it was like, it has taken quite some time to get all that stuff done so we are still actually, the new deadline is August 1st. This one really is, fairly, we have a screening, I think, mid-August. So this is where we're at. We're done enough that if the new things that we're working on don't come through, I can turn in what I have pretty much. I had to shift gears and get a new composer. Because the composer that I had couldn't fit the schedule and do the stuff. So I needed someone who could do it really fast. And I found a guy and he did it really fast and he was great. So we did a score in about 5 weeks, which is a whole new process I've never done before.
Oh, okay. I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
Go on.
Happy to share. I learned so much. So we did score. Again, I'm in the middle of color, but also finishing up VFX. So those are all coming in now as well. And then that's it. That really is the final. But in the meantime, we also wanted to have a website up because we're talking about the movie. We want to be able to send people to the movie and have them put their name on for the mailing list. So JessPlusNone.com is live and it's up. And we, just looked at other indie film websites basically and decided we gathered 4 or 5 and went, I like this one. Said, okay, let's try to do that. And pretty much just, did a design that way.
Okay. Did you hire a company specifically to create the website, or did somebody on your crew?
My producer, Heather Olt, is really, really good. She creates websites, and so she was all over the website. And what was great about having, and this is what I would encourage anybody who's doing indie stuff, don't be afraid to give away credits. It depends. With producing credits, that can be shitty because usually there's one producer that goes crazy and really does all the stuff. But if you want a team, if you can give away a co-producer or assistant producer or any kind of credit, you can get stuff that's a lot harder to get if you need to pay someone or if you need to hire someone professionally, right?
Right.
So I, for my team, we always had that, Mandy June Turpin, the producer, was always going to be boots on the ground. And then that the other producers were going to handle more we're going to fix the posters, the trailers, we're going to help do press at the festivals. They are going to be on the back end figuring out the strategy for where the movie goes and all that.
So, okay. So then then what would, so then that's website. So is this website's happening at the same time as you're doing the poster, as you're doing the trailer? Because I assume that the trailer and the poster are on the website.
They are. Wait, I don't know if the poster.
Trailer probably not yet.
The trailer is. We've actually had a trailer. We had a trailer that was cut before the movie was cut.
Really?
Yes, because we were trying to get finishing funds.
Okay.
And
okay. So how? Tell me how that came about then.
So we have a brilliant guy who was our DIT, meaning he was up at the camp with us and he took all the footage and he would extract stills for the DP and I to look at, to kind of give us a sense of how the movie's looking so far, and then, you know, what we like, what we don't like, so we can discuss the footage and see if we're on track. And also it was great because he's pulling these stills from the movie that then we will be able to use for production, right? And I think I said this before, like, you don't ever want to get caught with a movie and no tools to sell it.
Right.
So while we were on set, we did what do you call it? God, like a press
EPK?
kit. Yeah, an EPK. Yeah, thank you. God. We interviewed everybody about their experience in the movie, and we had a guy taking behind the scenes stills, and then we had Blake pulling stills from the actual footage in case, you know, to use them for festivals and stuff like that. So we had that stuff, and he cut together this amazing trailer. We had a little over 2 minutes because most movies have their trailers are about 2.5, you know, just to give people a really good sense of the movie. But then we also cut a 90-second one and a 60-second one.
Okay.
Because we knew that, for social media.
Right.
And also, you kind of want to, you want to sort of mix it up. You want people to see different things and you never know what people are going to get excited about. So we cut 3 trailers and we did the poster. And the way we sort of approached it was we looked at the stuff that other dark comedies were doing, other indie dark comedies, and kind of settled on a look that we all liked.
Okay.
And then
can you mention any of the ones that you sort of looked at that you thought had done the job really well?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's like you don't want to be protective of like, oh, I don't want to. We stole from no. It's
no.
I was thinking what inspired you to do what you did.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay.
Obvious Child was another one we looked at.
Okay. Yep. Jenny Slate? Is that
yeah. Mm-hmm. Jenny Slate. And then I'm trying to think. I actually looked at a lot of rom-com posters too, to see even big budget ones like When Harry Met Sally, and I guess
there's a lot of, you've seen a lot of bad posters because man, I gotta say there's no knock against all the great graphic designers out there, but there's a lot of those look like they were done on Friday at 4:00.
Yeah. For
They're
sure.
Like, the guy, the girl, soft focus, done. Next.
Right. And what's great about that is you really look at those posters and go, well, what are they selling? Like, I want to be able to look at the movie and kind of know what I'm getting into, right? So we wanted something, we know what our movie is and we know who our audiences are. That's one thing we've been talking about from the get-go, which is, and this was even part of picking out the title because, here's a little insider info. The original title of the movie was Intense. IN and then tense because they're camping.
Yeah.
And I love a triple entendre.
Sure.
Right? So it was intense, but that just says camping. And this is a movie about college friends who go to a wedding, and it's LGBTQ. We have gay couples, and the lead is bisexual. And so it ticks off a bunch of boxes, actually. It's camping, outdoorsy enthusiasts, wedding stuff, rom-com, LGBTQ, and then also, what's the other one? Maybe that's it. Maybe camping, wedding, LGBTQ, comedy. Those are the 4 things we were like, these are the things that we want our poster and trailer to say. Because if people like that sort of thing, then they'll get it. They need to get that from the poster and the trailer. So we picked images and bits that we thought accurately told the story of the movie, but also dropped in the and for those of you who like wedding movies, look, it's a wedding,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the elements that are in there were from actual photography. Like it was like real footage or pictures that he took while on set. You didn't have like a a separate photo shoot with the cast or anything that you pulled from?
No, we pulled stills
Okay.
from the movie. And it was
Okay.
interesting because like we didn't go with just the lead actress on the poster
Right.
because she's phenomenal and I have no doubt she will be incredibly famous. I mean, she should be, I think she's well known and well respected in the industry. But if I say Abby Miller, you're not like, oh my God, Abby Miller yet. And I say yet.
But yeah, you're going to get to say you knew her when.
Oh God, I hope I get to put her in everything. She was phenomenal, and everybody who watches the movie says so. She's an interesting case because she's a dramatic actress who hasn't gotten a chance to do a lot of comedy, and this is very comedic. So I think it's going to launch her into getting to do all kinds of comedy, and she's great at it. But so we didn't choose to have like just her featured because it's really an ensemble, and we had to say all of those things. So it was best for us to like take little. We did put Matt Walsh on the poster
Okay.
because
Makes sense.
Yeah, he's a big part of the movie, and also he's Matt Walsh. So,
He's my Walsh, yeah.
but then we just put all the pieces together that felt like it ticked off all those boxes, which was. It took about 2 or 3 tries of like, what about this? What about that? But it came together pretty easily, actually. But it wouldn't have if we were like, I don't know, let's do a cool poster. Like we need a poster that says all these things.
So then it just becomes a matter of laying out and figuring out how everything goes. Did you get as far into it as like picking the font? I mean, like how
Yes.
specific do you? Okay, yeah. So tell me about then. I guess then the logo.
So we ended up using the font that we used for the credits in the movie.
Okay, good. I appreciate that because it always annoys me when you have the one thing walking in and then is a totally different thing. Like, wait a minute, you were using like whatever. It doesn't matter, like Helvetica, and now it's handwritten on the credits. Like, did you not? Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting that you noticed.
Already,
That's
I appreciate
interesting. Yeah. Well, I think I do enjoy a consistent style, and also I'm maybe a little bit lazy, or not lazy.
No. We don't say lazy. We say consistent.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, I think I'm intimidated. Like I got to work with.
You're right.
I got to work with a person who did titles professionally, and that on my movie You're Breaking Up, and she blew my mind. Like the titles are honestly, I think, the best thing about that movie. They are specific and they're animated, and and when she was designing them for me, she was like, trying to tell a story with them and trying to evoke something. And I before that experience had no concept that you picked anything except like Courier, right? I mean, like it just needs to have words up on the screen.
Serif or sans serif?
Yeah.
Those are the only choices you need to make.
Exactly. And she really opened my mind to that. So we picked something that was like, I wanted to do Woody Allen-ish without doing Woody Allen because I didn't, but I like clean text, So we picked something with
So you wanted like solid color and then just words on screen, or
Well, I love.
I mean, that's sort of when I think of the Woody Allen openings. Those are kind of what I think of as black screen, white text.
Yes. I have that, yes, as an opening with a little bit of sound underneath it because I like to invite people into the movie.
Okay. All right.
So the sound begins under the black, and then the first title comes up, and then we go into the movie. But it has a little bit of a French thing. I saw this. I was looking again at people's title sequences and trying to figure out.
I was going to ask if you had like even if not top 10, like a top 5, like what your favorite title sequences are. Does your brain work that way? I don't want to put you on the spot.
You know what?
I don't know if I was just, as you were talking about it, I was like trying to think if I could come up with 5. The first one I can think of that's distinctive that I remember as being distinctive was School of Rock, because School of Rock, it's all literally hand drawn.
Yeah.
Like everything you see, they actually had written it on a wall or on a chalkboard or something like that, which I thought was so cool. I'd never seen anyone do that before.
Yeah. I don't have anything that's sparking to mind right now of like, The Big Chill is an amazing opening credit sequence.
I don't remember that one.
What
is their opening credits?
It's about 20 minutes long, I swear to God.
Is it getting the body ready? Isn't it looks like it's right. It looks like you're getting someone dressed, but it turns out they're putting him in the suit for the funeral.
Yes. It's a guy buttoning up, and then you cut to the different characters and you show the characters in their different worlds, and you see that they're all sad about something, and then the further you get into it, you see them pull the sleeve down and it's covering up a scar on his wrist, right? That he's cut his wrists. So it's just a very stylistic kind of specific credits choice. I tried to do something like that. I don't know if I really pulled it off, but it was inspired by that, certainly. I also love Judd Apatow and how he uses. I love any movie that does video at the end. So and I love. I also love When Harry Met Sally, how they do the little videos of character stuff. So I had my characters speak in character, like doing the wedding video, and they do that at the end.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so it's just like a little bonus for people who are watching the movie. They get to live in the world a little bit longer, and that's a total ripoff of Judd Apatow, and I love that stuff, you know.
It was he was an inspiration.
Totally. Yep. Absolutely inspired by. Yeah.
Yeah, inspired by.
But,
so
yeah.
Just as a side note on that, and we'll circle back. Was that something that you wrote in the original script?
That's interesting.
When they showed up, you sort of like, I also want you to do this. We're going to shoot this in a couple of days, and you wrote another thing for each of the.
So
I'm just curious.
So I did not write that in the original script, but I did put it in the production script, just so we would know that needed to happen, because I didn't want to get
right, and all the actors would have it and not be ambushed by it.
Yeah, well, they were ambushed. Because
gotta keep on their toes.
I made them improvise the thing. I think I was off doing something. I think I was shooting another thing, or I was doing something where I was required, so I couldn't actually be there. So I handed, in fact, I think Abby Miller, I was like, "You're going to do this for me." I did write down, like, I was like, here are the notes. Here's what I want Nate and Wendy to hit, like, roughly. These are the story beats I want them to do. Here are the story beats for the bride and groom. Here are the story beats for the brother. And I did story beats for all of them, so they had kind of an idea of what to say, but it was not scripted. So she recorded them as if she was doing for a wedding video, and they, in character, hit the story beats that I'd kind of suggested to them. But I also was like, tell them to say whatever. I don't care. I did care, but
Wow. So I think that means, doesn't she now have to be credited as second unit director?
Yes, she does. Thank you, Kyle. I'll go back in and change those credits right now. Wow.
Yeah, if you could handle that.
This conversation went really well. I couldn't hope for more.
And the end. No way.
Oh God, yeah. No, it's that's the indie spirit. I should get catering credit on some level, so
There you go. I say you're the one controlling the words.
Yes.
Put yourself in there multiple times. So bringing that up then, closing credit. Did you finish closing credits before opening credits?
I did I finish
or
it before?
Or is it like who? I guess who handles?
I finished closing credits before I finished like color VFX. Like, we've had closing credits for a while, and now we're just changing out things. Like I said, we had to get a different composer, so we're changing that credit. We're changing the color credit. Like, there's some things that we're adjusting, and people new special thanks and things like that. But we did it, honestly, this is a good example of what I was saying, because we were waiting. We were waiting for score, VFX. We were waiting for all these things. So I didn't want to have it be August 1st when the film is actually done, and then be like, okay, now let's try to do credits. I was like, hey, Chris, who's my editor, I was like, let's do this. We have all the information. Let's get it in there. And he did it. Now, on a bigger budget movie, you would have a special titles person. And I have had titles people on some of my shorts, because it's a smaller, easier chunk, and it's just less. But because we had to do it. And also I needed like autonomy, and I needed to be able to like get in there and play with it. Chris could do it, and he just did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say, so I know on a big budget movie, there's a bit of legality attached to what order things come in. On an indie movie, does that matter, or are you just sort of following the normal convention?
It's a really good question, because I looked at a bazillion indie movies and watched their end credits. And I wrote down the order, and it was different on every single one. So it really is kind of but there is a logic to it as well. Like, there's some like a logic in that some people, got bigger font or made more space, or, or they got bumped up higher in the order. I guess it just depends on what the production wants to do, like how they want to credit people. But it really was different for every single one. So we just kind of randomly picked what we felt was right. I did have, because it was a SAG production, all of my actors had a certain, in their deal memo, this is what I get for billing in terms.
Okay. Did Matt Walsh get the and?
He did, but oddly enough, they
Nice.
didn't ask for it.
Really? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
I was that was interesting because if you show up and do one cool thing, you get the and.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like, I think what Judi Dench got the and for Shakespeare in Love. Like she's basically shot for one day, like a 5-minute scene,
Yep.
and she gets the and then an Oscar.
Yeah. Oh God, right? I know. Well, and Matt Walsh basically, he did that. He shot for one day
Yeah.
and he got an and.
Right.
But he,
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you call in those people. They come in, they give you a home run, and then they go home.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. So, and there are some things that we're still kind of working out, but I'm glad that it's not something that's ahead of me. I'm trying to get everything as done as fast as I can so that when the last thing is done, it's really done.
Does it stuff play over black or is it playing over footage?
At the end?
Like the credits. Yeah, I'm sorry, the end credits. Yeah, the end credits. Do you actually have is it the wedding is still going on and the credits are playing,
It's
or is it
the wedding video that the actors improvised?
Oh, okay. So that actually is like the real footage of them.
Yes.
Is it on top of them?
It's to the side. So
Okay, okay, good.
it
I
kind
appreciate
of
that, 'cause-
changes a little bit. So when the movie goes to black, and then it's a few credits in black, and then it starts off with
Including yours, I would imagine.
yes, yes.
Did you give yourself a separate? Sorry, I keep thinking of other things. Did you give yourself a separate credit for writing and directing, or was it written and directed by?
Oh my God, no! Written and directed by. I mean,
Nice.
I could have milked it, I guess, but
Sure.
I'm like, please.
Okay. All right.
It is.
All right.
I did use the Mandy Fabian film up front.
You did. Oh, I was going to ask that too. Okay.
I did.
You did a man of fame. Okay.
Mostly because honestly, I built this opening credit sequence, right? This idea of, and while this is happening, we'll have credits going over. But I got to tell you, I have 10 actors, right? I have it's an ensemble of 10, and they really kind of require at least equal billing. And I was like, oh God, we don't have. And you don't want to distract from the action by having the credits. So it was we tried to put all the credits up top, but it was like, you can't credit everybody up top. You have to.
Right.
So
unless you're just boom, 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 and then
Yeah.
they don't get their moment.
But I had put all these shots that I knew credits were going to go over, and then I was like, what's going to go over them? I don't know. So it's still really tricky territory for me, but I just used 2. I used 2 credits up top, and then it goes into the movie.
Okay. How is that what you've done on all your previous on your short films? Mm-hmm. Like man,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a
Is that
real.
you-
I have a tendency. Not now. My pilot that I did, we did credits all the way up through the first couple scenes. Actually, it just like a TV show would. But for whatever reason, with movies, like I watched Coda, and I was like, oh, she doesn't have any. It's like the production companies, and then it's nothing, and nobody gets credited until the end. And I was like, well, if that's good enough for Coda, it's good enough for me. Because I do have a tendency to sort of, in fact, the reason that I'm challenged by titles and title sequences and credits and all that is because I am of the mindset, I mean, I come from the short film background and sketch comedy background. I'm like, let's get to it.
Get in.
Don't bore people, like give them a hook right away.
Yeah.
So I kind of,
I was like, even with big budget stuff, as soon as I see text on screen, like a wall of text, I'm like, ooh. Ugh, I'm already like, uh-oh. And then when someone starts reading me that text on the screen, I'm like, oh, no. like you've already put me at arm's length. Like, come on,
Right.
give me in the story. You can do exposition later.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oof.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I really am, which is not really fair because we all worked really hard on it. Everybody should have as much glory as possible. But what I'm hoping is that it will still be glorious, that they will still feel really good about the work, and everybody's
So
credited.
did you get any consideration to a film by Mandy Fabian? Did you put any thought into it, or is it just like Mandy Fabian film done and you move on, or did you actually sort of consider what you wanted your credit to look like?
I did consider it. I think every time that question comes up, I Google what's the difference. And I think there is a slight difference of like, I don't like a film by,
Okay.
because the reason I don't like it is because there's just no way it's not by me. I could never have done it alone. I didn't make this movie alone. So a Mandy Fabian film, it accurately reflects, this is Mandy Fabian's voice, this is my vision, and this is my tone. If you like Mandy Fabian world, this film is going to deliver. But a film by Mandy Fabian, absolutely not. Because I rely so heavily. I mean, yeah, there's just no, I'm not one of those directors, and I don't think I want to be. I've toyed around with it. Like I have taken a color correction class, and I have taken editing classes, and I've thought about really getting into editing some more. But honestly, I know so many talented editors, and I'm like, I don't want to do it all myself. Other people are so great, you know? But the temptation is, but then you'll just get it done, and you can get it done on your time frame, and you don't have to wait for other people's schedules or worry about if you're, honoring them enough or paying them enough, or if they want to be there, or if they're going to get a job midway through, or blah, blah, so it does simplify it. Those people that are like, I wrote it, I directed it, I edited it, but I can't. But I don't do it alone. I love everybody I work with. They're phenomenal, just phenomenal.
I want to say, I was curious if what your thought process. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, yeah. So then from the beginning to the end, then so Dancing is playing, and then you get to have those little videos that play on the end. And do you have like a final like sort of sting at the end, like a funny thing you put in?
I sure do.
To send people out the door. Yeah, I thought you would.
Oh, you mean at the very end? Yeah, kind of, but it's not a video.
Oh, okay.
It is a signature.
You don't have to give all the way the story.
I won't
we still want people to go and see the movie however they can.
I will not tell you what it is, but I will tell you that it is a signature of all of my films except my drama. Every single one of my films has a joke at the end that I'm very proud of, and I put it in this one.
All right. Okay, good. All right, we will then. There you go. There's a little tease to get people to go to see, because the only way you're gonna know is if you go see Just Bust Down.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so then, so color correction is what's taking a long time.
Yes.
You said. So, I guess my question is, what is it specifically about color correction that is so time and labor intensive?
Well,
or is it just like a scheduling thing, like just trying to get somebody in to do it at the time?
Mostly scheduling. And then there was we've had a couple of small snafus where our movie was shot on a Sony Venice, which is like Maserati. Is that even still a car?
What? No, I think it's a good analogy.
It's a very powerful camera. It has all the colors and all the aspects. It's, So we had a colorist who is phenomenal and does great work, but he works on a program that can't access all of the Sony Venice. So what happened was he was working on it, and then the DP was looking at it and going, what about these highlights? What about the midtones? What about the thing? And then we figured out soon enough that his system was not going to be able to accurately get into the footage as deep as we needed to go to get a lot of the things we needed. So that's part of the reason is we kind of had to start from scratch with that. No fault of this guy. He was amazing. What he did was amazing. It was just not right for this particular footage and camera. So we got actually one of the gaffer on the movie also does color, so he's been doing it. But there's also VFX. And let me say, even with titles and stuff in the beginning, what I imagined and what Yoshi and I had talked about was we're going to have floating text on the walls, and it's going to be this whole world of things, and maybe the titles could be like people's Instagram things. And we had this whole creative vision when we first started doing it. Well, then the reality of, everybody, Yoshi has a full-time job, and he has a kid and a wife, and, it's really hard and that stuff takes so much time. And unless you have really all the time in the world and all the resources in the world, sometimes
and a whole dedicated team that you're paying to do all of these things.
Exactly. Yeah. So very quick, we were like, oh, okay, forget all the text and let's just get this one. Can we get this one? And he worked on the things that were he really I mean, he did a great job, but he was focusing more on the stuff that was a little tougher, that was more necessary to the film, like stuff that I couldn't not have it in the movie. But whenever you have, so VFX, that's the thing. VFX is it's really built, it's built frame by frame by hand. I don't even think I understood that. I was like, can't you just lop a green screen bunny on something and blah, blah. But they did it. They did the stuff like CGI. So they built it frame by frame by hand. And then when you're coloring something, and this is not something we knew before either, you actually have to take the code, like just the stuff that tells the VFX to show up, and then you color the footage, and then you have this separate, so you can color that separately, and then you lay it on top of each other.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
Right, because he can't just send a bunny that's not going to match what we've colored for the footage. So, spoiler alert, there's a bunny in the movie, but you know what I mean? So it was really, we had to learn about that. We had to sign off on the VFX, get it to where we needed it to go, and then they had to lay out all the code and then be able to send that over to my colorist to then put that on the colored picture. And that's the part that's taking...
I was going to make a Jess plus Bun joke, but I decided not to, out of respect for you and your artistic process.
I appreciate that so much. Now I'm dying to think of a bunny movie. That would have been a very hairy thing to do. I don't know.
Oh! You know. Well, let's just hop over that topic and move on to something else. Okay, so, all right, so all the coming. So did you have to pick sort of like a color palette for all of these things that would match, like your poster and your trailer and the website and everything, to sort of have that same uniform that matches the film?
Yes, because this is sort of a wedding in the wilderness movie. We've gone with some greens and I want it to feel very much like they're in the forest, and it's bright rom-com-y, like it isn't a horror, right? So not blues and yellow, or not like, that like grayish, yellowish thing that horror movies do. So yes, there is a color palette. They put something on the footage when you're shooting it. I don't know if we talked about this before, but
I don't think so.
Okay, so when you're shooting a movie, it's actually called raw, which means it looks sort of grayish. It's kind of bland. It's devoid of color, because what the movie is recording, what the camera's recording, is information that basically you can make any color you want. Then what you do is you apply a look, like a preset. It's called a LUT. It's like a digital message that goes to that raw footage and goes, well, this isn't permanent, but just for now, we're going to make red look this color, and we're going to make blue look this color, and this is going to be the overall tone and feel of this footage. So for me as a director, when I'm watching it in the monitor, it looks colored. They've applied this because it would be so off. You can't tell if something is too blue or too red or too whatever if you can't see the colors. So they apply that so you can see it in the monitor. Then when you go later to color it, you start from there, but then you can adjust it. It's not permanent. And so our look, I love the LUT, and it's been interesting because, we're trying things outside the LUT. Meaning trying to color it. Oh, can this be warmer? Can this be that? This needs to be brighter. And so we're finding that sort of happy medium of like, I do want her faces brighter, but I don't want everything to sort of go to yellow. So it's a bit of that. We're playing a little bit. What I could do and will do at the end of it is like, if our playing doesn't get me what I need, then I will be like, just make it look like the LUT. I don't care. That's all. And we can do that. But it's a little bit of like, oh, but he's done such a great job, because we have a lot of night scenes, right? So the night scenes, they lit all these trees while we were on set. And I was like, oh my God, who cares about the trees? Stop lighting the trees. Let's get, you know what I mean? I was like, I only care about the actors. Well, shame on me. Now we're in color, and you can see it's beautiful. Like every shot has depth. They did a great job. So he colors everything. The shadows, the highlights on the ground, like nothing is blown out. Everything has information there because the camera was so powerful.
It's amazing, like all these little, I mean, obviously you're learning all these things as you're going and stuff too, but I sort of only ever notice things when they've done it wrong.
Yep.
So, like, as you're talking about things, I just watched, I won't call them out, but a major television, a high budget, high profile television show. They put out an episode, and during like a fight scene, there was over here and it looked great, and suddenly they cut to the reverse angle, and it was clearly shot on a different day with different stuff too. They hadn't like color corrected to make it match.
Oh no.
And it did the whole, I'm like, oh, and they cut back and it went back to normal. I'm like, oh no. Like, somebody missed that when they were doing their final composite or whatever it was. But it was like, it's one of those things. Oh, I never really thought about that. But you have to go through and make it everything look uniform so that you don't get that. Everything. It was like, oh, this like looks like an assembly cut or whatever. Like this was there. And they hadn't done the last piece of it or whatever. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
That's because it was digital streaming. I'm sure they can just go, oh, no. And they can just pull it back and then put out the corrected version. But
maybe, yeah. But that's a thing. Like, we shot outside 90% of the movie. And, a 3-minute scene could take 4 or 5 hours to shoot. Well, the sun moves a lot in a 4 or 5 hour span. So part of color.
Not helpful at all, son.
Right. So part of color correction is also like, oh, she's really bright in this one, but really dark in that one. Like you try to sort of correct
shadows over here. Now they're over here.
But let me also say, this is a fun little thing I've learned, is that sometimes computers and exporting things and outputs just decide to do weird things, right?
Yeah.
Just export what we saw, and then all of a sudden the color's like bonkers, or there's a whole scene that's like, for some reason the audio didn't match up to the picture in that one spot, or suddenly this one sound effect is just gone. It's the weirdest thing that these computers just, they're ghosts in the machine. So you have to QC, you have to quality control everything. So I've watched this movie now probably 250 times.
Wow.
Here's the good news. I can stand by it because I still love it. And I think people will love it. But boy, it's hard. I have a sound mix right now because after we got the new score put in and everything was signed off and done, I still haven't listened to it because I'm like, oh my God, I have to watch the movie again. Okay.
Yeah, I guess because you've done it so many times. It's not like, I mean, there are a whole podcast devoted to watching the same movie, hundreds of times.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It becomes an endurance test. Do you almost instantly notice the changes because you know it so well at this point? Like when it goes in and suddenly it's a different mix, different, the VFX are in or whatever, you instantly like, oh, I know that's the big difference.
1,000%. This is an album that I know by heart. I know every breath. I know every hand brushing against a shirt. I know a squeak of a bet. Like I know every inch of this movie like that. And in fact, it's so weird. I'm out in my life and I'll say something and I'm like, oh my God, I just like quoted the movie. Like, it's like I've started to talk like the characters. I actually do. I speak like all of these characters now because I'll randomly say something that's become so part of my vocabulary. It's crazy. You really mind meld with it. So yeah. Yeah.
That is one of the weird quirks of when you're the writer too, is that suddenly I found myself doing that. There was something my kids were doing and I sort of had to be stern and I did like a big fatherly, like you need to and I walked away and I'm like, oh my God, I just quoted one of my scripts. Like, I was like, oh, I hope, luckily they hadn't seen that one. So like I got away with it, but I was funny. Like, oh man. But I mean, I did write it. So it was quoting me, but at the same time, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got to work a little harder.
I'm doing the characters in the movie. Like I'll say something like, there's one character, she's constantly going, yes. And that's not a unique thing, but every time I do it, I'm like, I do it exactly like her. It's just a funny, yeah. And I will say this, here's something that's pertinent to production. You do get this thing, what did he call it? My composer said this. He's like, I feel like you have a little bit, they call it like score love or temp love. So because when you make a movie,
I've heard of this.
You put in a temporary score, you put in temporary music, and then you hand it off to a composer and they give you back a new cue that's different than the one you've heard 85 times. So there's this really interesting thing where you listen to it and like sometimes your first response will be like, oh my God, absolutely not. But only because it's not what you
Yeah.
It's not what
in
you
your head. You're hearing that piece of music that was used in You've Got Mail or whatever that you put in there.
Yeah, you can't tell if it doesn't feel right because the cue isn't right or because it's not the cue that you have been listening to forever. So you kind of have to take space with that stuff. It's really, and the same is true for an edit. If you make a change, you're like, I can't tell if it's better because it's different. And I don't know if different is better, sometimes. So
yeah, there's actually a couple of YouTube compilations where you can tell the director went, no, I want it to sound just like that. And people have figured out like, oh, that's a sound cue from Inception. Oh, that's a sound cue for they've literally, the composer just went, okay. And they basically did it, did their own version of the same thing, but they can say, look, it's, there's 50 notes here that are the same as the other one. And so, yeah, because I think that's what it is because you put in the temp score, they hear it 1,000 times, and then by the time that Hans Zimmer or whatever puts the stuff in, they're like, no, I really wanted the buh, 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 buh. It's like, yeah, but
that's really interesting. Yeah, I will say, part of my
Giacchino already did that. I can't really just take his stuff.
Right. And part of my strategy was just give them a roadmap as clear as you can because that'll hurry the process up, right? You don't have to guess what's in my head. Here's an example of what's in my head, but. To his credit,
it can be taken too far.
Well, thankfully, my composer did not do that. I'm very.
How did you make this connection with this guy?
I reached out so I met a fabulous female composer at Sundance, and they were really it was the year that the very first woman won an Oscar for composition, for score. And so I was trying to advocate for female composers. And so I reached out to her and she was busy. And then she recommended 5 women and I reached out to all of them and they were all busy. And then this one woman was like,
sucks for you, but hey, that's kind of awesome.
It was great. No, I'd rather they be busy with jobs than, So anyway, this one woman works a lot with this guy, Jameson Hollister, and I listened to his stuff and I was like, well, he is exactly he's exactly what I needed. I needed someone who was did bluegrassy kind of roots feel, we're all going to sit on a porch and whack away at something. And he played all the instruments and he also could do vocals and he had a studio. He was everything I needed. And he was fast and really passionate about it. And that ticked all the boxes. So I was like, well, this is a very, I didn't see any reason not to hire him. It was great.
Okay. So he sent you samples or?
Or
you, how, you looked through his, he looked through his stuff he had done in the past?
Yeah, I looked at his website.
Okay.
And again, and then I called him to talk to him about what I sent him.
Vibe check.
I sent him the movie to see if he liked it.
Okay. Oh, okay. You had it on
and then you have
on a private thing somewhere, you have
I sent him a rough cut, and he with the temp score because obviously you want to go. I want something like this. Can you do that? And he liked it, and then we talked on the phone, and the scheduling was going to work great because he had something he had to do in mid to late June, and I wanted it to be done by then. So it was this great thing where he's like, I can start tomorrow, and he like I said, he kind of he seemed like the right fit. So then I was negotiating with his agent actually. About what his deal would be, but he was already sending me cues. So he jumped in the very next morning and he would come up with an idea for something and send it to me a little Vimeo link and be like, here's this cue, what do you think? And then I would, talk back and we went back and forth like that for a while. What we had to do was just like color a little bit, we had to find the palette. So what instruments do I love? For some reason, one of those squeeze boxes, and sometimes the tinkly kink, kink, I'm like, ugh. People love using them, but not used correctly, they make me bonkers.
I know you're a very musical person.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that's something he could never know. I just have to say, Can you pick a different instrument? I don't like that one.
Obviously, he doesn't listen to the podcast. We gotta work on
That's
that.
Right. I know, I'm finally particular about one thing. But so anyway, he would send me these cues and initially, we really kind of got into it because I was like, I think I'm Paul McCartney and you're John Lennon.
Oh.
Like, I want
Okay.
musical, melodic. I want toe tapping. And he was doing this really offbeat stuff that was, still Beatles quality, but like not the song that everyone's going to hum later, And so we had that joke of like, he was like, uh-oh, is this going to work out? And I was like, I think it will. Let's just keep going. And then what happened was great because he sent me stuff and I'd say what I liked and didn't. And then as he got further in the movie, like honestly, when he hit about halfway, maybe halfway into the movie, the rest of it, I barely had any notes because by then he had a sense of what I liked. He really was in a zone. He knew his palette. He was into the movie and it really showed. So because the beginning, like that was the same thing with my movie. We cut this great movie, man. But the beginning needed a lot of work because we didn't know what we were doing, So you always kind of have to go back and go. I at one point said, forget the beginning. Just keep going. And then we'll go back and revisit the beginning. By the time we get to the end, we'll know what we need at the beginning.
Yep. Just like writing.
Yeah.
You get to the end and you go, oh, this is the story I was telling.
Absolutely. God.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun process, and I had never done that. I didn't know what we were supposed to do, so it was great to know that that's how that works. He sends you cues, you give notes, he sends more, and you just keep going until you're done.
So I guess what musically, like what is it? He's guitar and like he has a little ensemble, like.
Oh, he does guitar, mandolin, violin, drums, xylophone, squeeze box, harmonica.
So he does all of this himself and then just layers it on top of each other?
Yeah, he's like a music nut, right? So he's passionate about scoring, and scoring really does need layers of stuff, right? It's not really supposed to feel like a song. It's supposed to feel like a mood, and it's what you said earlier. If it's a well-done score, no one will notice it.
Right.
And in fact, the biggest challenge that we had was I have a couple of montages in there, and I needed a song. And, he just kept doing like more subtle stuff, and I just kept having to push him like, go further, go bigger, go bigger.
No, now you can really,
right. This is,
let it loose.
This is the one I want him toe tapping and
this is your
humming
guitar
along.
solo, go.
Yeah, like this is the one that should feel like a song, so. Yeah. But it was a very interesting process, and it was so great because it's that whole thing that I go through every time, which is like at first you're like, oh, how are we going to do this? Are we going to be able to do this? And then when you find your stride, you're like, oh, collaboration is so fulfilling. It's great.
Is there a point where you felt like now it's a real movie? I mean, because like every one of these is adding another element. Like you've shot all these short films and stuff too, and then now with this one, every time it's another layer and another layer and another layer. Is there a certain point where you're like, well, I could release it now and it'd be fine?
Oh yeah.
Or are you still like trying like get to the point like no, it's at 90. It's at 90, 92, 93, 94.
Honestly, like the color has to be fixed. The LUT is perfect. Like honestly, if they just fix the two little things that are wrong, I'd be happy. And we may end up doing that. We may end up I might just be like, forget it. It's an indie film. It's good enough. No one's going to notice it. Just fix the problems and we're done, right? And we may end up doing that. That may end up being how it goes. But for me, the music, having the score done, and then also having some of the VFX come in, because there were parts, the VFX is actually part of the story. It's not like, oh, if I had my wish, I'd have curtains on that window. It's like, no, if this is missing, it's not good. So that had to come in. And once that came in, and then I had found a couple stock shots to replace a couple VFX things. And once those pieces were in place, like right now I actually have a version of the movie that has no, this will come later. It's done.
Okay.
But it's not colored. So, and it doesn't have the final VFX in a couple things. So if pressed, do I have a final movie right now? Yes. It's not as good as it will be in 3 weeks. But if we don't get it done in 3 weeks, I swear to God, I'm going to share that other one. Because I don't care anymore. I'm like,
you're like 10 months pregnant at this point. You're just like, can I just have the kid?
Oh God, yeah. Yep. I'm hitting it, man. But I'm excited. So now,
Yeah. Yeah.
now we, as soon as it's done, which it really will be, because the colorist is leaving the country. He has to get it done.
Oh.
And I know exactly
Okay.
what I want, and he knows exactly what I want. So it's like, we're going to get it done. I had the luxury of a couple more weeks because I met the deadline I wanted to meet. And now it'll be done, and we're going to have a screening at Sony, which is great.
Okay.
And we're going to invite
that's nice.
sales agents and we're going to basically invite every fancy person we possibly can and go, look at our pretty pony. What do you think of our pony?
Anybody?
Yeah.
Like,
And, and then see what happens. We're going to use our connections straight out of the gate. And then beyond that, we'll do festivals. We'll do that route. Or, maybe if somebody sees it at the thing and goes, you got to sell this to Hulu right now, and they have that connection, then that'll happen.
right. Okay. So then let's talk about that then too. So we're here recording at this point, and by the time people hear this, the decision might have been made. So let's put a time capsule in here right now. Like, what is your aside from Success and Love? Like, that people see it and want to see it 1,000 times and love
Yes.
it. What is your ideal release scenario? Like, what is your dream hope that it would be? Are you really like man, you'd be happy? Let's say, I'll speak for you and say you'd be happy with anything.
Yes.
So basically, as long as it gets viewed somewhere. Okay, so we'll set the floor of as long as it gets out there beyond just your friends and family.
Yes.
But would you? I mean, obviously, streaming would be great. Theatrical would be great. Like, are you hoping for the circuit because you want to get back out there and see the indie circuit thing, or are you really just like, man, I hope Netflix says I love this. Here's a check, and then you can just be like, everybody go to Netflix and watch it. Like, what sort of where are you at right at this point in history?
Yeah. I think this is because of what I know. This is from all the filmmakers that I've seen and loved and have wanted their careers. Generally, they make a darling little movie. They go to Sundance or South by or one of these bigger festivals, and they win an audience award. That would be like the dream. To win an audience award at a fancy festival, at least I think, then it's like people go, oh, you're the one that did that movie, and then they think of you for other jobs.
Right.
I don't know
right.
if you get that same sort of cachet just selling your movie to Hulu. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would be like financially and for the movie, that's great. But I don't know. Like, also, there could be a world, I think there might be a world where you like, oh, I'm going to sell it to Netflix before the festival even comes, and then Netflix takes it to the festival. But I think that's more for like if Taylor Swift is in it. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. Yeah, right. It has a
Yeah.
thing.
So if I could if I had a Napoleon Dynamite scenario and we go to a festival and we're like the indie darling, and then it gets picked up by
Builds
Apple
buzz.
TV or Hulu or Netflix and it's there, that's phenomenal. That would be really ideal.
Darling of the festival circuit now finds its home at Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, and then I'd like to get opportunities to direct television. That would be great. Just something that like I love doing comedy. So, that would be ideal. But that's for me. But for the movie, I really actually my big dream would be that would lead to maybe I get to be a Richard Linklater. Like, maybe I get to be a Judd Apatow. Maybe I get to make more of the Mandy Fabian films and I get to build an audience. So even if we don't become a festival darling or get into one of the big festivals, my other dream would be like, look, I want to go to campgrounds or drive-ins all over the country or go to like Alamo Drafthouse. Like, I would love to go to houses where people are indie film nuts and want to come watch my movie and talk about it because I like audience interaction and engagement. I love talking about this stuff, obviously.
Well, yes, I can tell.
Right?
As we're still going strong.
Yeah. So that would also be a dream, to be able to go around and meet the people. I'd love for people to know my work so that when I have a movie, I can say, well, my last movie, we took it around the country and we sold this many tickets. And if I got a little bit of that cult following, sort of it spreads and people see it, indie darling thing as an indie film, then that would set me up for my second feature because I could prove that I have an audience. So that would be pretty sweet.
And that's where we're going to stop the conversation for today. If you'd like to hear more of Mandy's voice, she's got her very own podcast. It's called The Mand Cave, hosted in collaboration with her friend, Mandy Kaplan. You'll find it wherever the finest podcasts are found. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the latest chapter in the Curiosity Codex, but there are many pages left to decipher. We're part of the True Story FM family of podcasts. Find out more about us at truestory.fm. Our theme music is Intrusion by Severed Personality, aka Kevin MacLeod. The voice of the Codex is Kara Gallo, and my name is Kyle Olson.
The Codex is closed. For now.